We are going to be installing a table that folds down to get some more counter space in our kitchen because things are pretty cramped right now. And so what I have are two 1 by, this is currently 6 feet, but that's too long for me, but you know, I'm going to cut it to length. Bought them, they were $17 each at Home Depot, so 34 bucks total for two of these things, which is pretty good value, I think. And then I also bought these hinges right here on Amazon, and these were about 40 bucks. And so for the pair. So for both these guys, my plan is to basically take this, and I've used my stud finder to mark the studs below this space in our kitchen. And what we're going to be doing is basically just tapping into the studs and screwing in this thing. And this guy is pretty cool because it folds when you press this thing, it'll collapse to basically nothing. So when we don't need a table or something, we can just do that. But when we do want one, we just can bring it out just like this. And as long as you keep pulling it, we will have a table. So there's a second one. These are the mounting screws, and there's gonna be these shorter little screws that actually hold the boards into these guys. And then, by the way, these are called shelf boards, I believe, at Home Depot. So, you know, I think if I just bought some plywood or something, it would have cost even more money. But honestly, I think these are pretty good, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, so the plan is to basically mount it up against here as high as we can, just so it's relatively level. But yeah, we're just gonna come in here, gonna mark this up, and ideally something like this. Issue I'm running into here is that for the bigger drywall anchors here that didn't actually get into a stud, is that they just, you see that, that's really not good. So these things are not actually tightening down, so there's no actual support except from this one guy right there. So these guys are fine, those guys are not so fine. So I'm just gonna redraw some holes and hopefully grab something solid for this thing. All right, second time's the charm on this guy. So missed the studs the first time, so I just was extra careful, and I'm not even gonna bother with the drywall anchors. So I just shoved all this stuff deep in there, and now we've got a working solid hinge that I'm more comfortable putting some serious weight on. So I'm gonna do the same thing right there and be really happy with how this thing turns out. Alrighty, so we got these things all drilled in now, and they feel pretty firm and solid against the wall, and they're grabbing those studs, which is great. So now I'm a lot more comfortable actually putting some of these things on when these guys are not necessarily the lightest. But now the next step is to just remeasure how much of this guy is going to be needed between there and there. We'll cut these to length, and then we'll just seat them on top, and then we'll look into drilling through these holes to get them all secured so they don't slide around too much. So yeah. Good, as you should. It's a Friday.
I just need to sample this and do more digging, and then once I'm done with that, we're to cook.
All right, guys, here's the finished product, and I'm super happy with it, and I think it turned out wonderful. And my partner helped out with this one, so I really appreciate that too. And it's pretty sturdy. There is some flex to this. I think if we had like a 2 foot by whatever 63-inch board, it would have been stronger, but it is what it is. And there's a little gap here, which I think is actually helpful. But as you can see, it's not the most perfect clean cut, and there's probably better saws and tools I could use for getting it to look like that. But honestly, for the amount of money I spent on this, which was 17 for each of those, so 34 bucks plus another 30 for those hinge things. And then I also bought a little skill saw thing on Amazon for 40 bucks. It's not a bad deal at all. So really happy with how all this turned out. I'd say one of the harder parts of this was getting these screws that hold it from the other side. Like this guy, he was okay, but the guy right under there is just a pain in the butt to get access to. Unfortunately, I had a really long Phillips screwdriver, which helped, but basically got 2 screws for each of these guys on either one of these things. And they've got these rails here, so when you press it, this whole thing just starts to come down just like that. And now there's even more space in here when we need it. And then when you want a table, you just pull this thing up and there you go. So very happy. And then for me, something I'll always notice is just how, if you look at it, there's ever so slightly of a little dip to it on the right side. So it is tilting a slight bit to the right, but everything else here, really happy with. And as I become a better carpenter, we'll get this more level. But in the short run, we just gave ourselves literally 10 square feet more of countertop space that we didn't have previously, which I think is awesome. So we will definitely be using this, and thank you all for watching.